On a chilly evening in Ohio, 30-year-old single dad Mark is driving home when he spots a 65-year-old paralyzed woman struggling alone at a bus stop. The wind is fierce, and she looks exhausted and helpless. Without a second thought, Mark stops, offering help, and little does he know, this small act of kindness will change both of their lives forever. Like, share, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from now. Let's get started. Mark was driving home from work on a chilly Ohio evening when he noticed her. At the corner of a nearly empty street, an elderly woman in a wheelchair struggled to stay balanced as the wind whipped around her. Her frail hands gripped the sides of the chair, and her face was etched with frustration and worry. Mark slowed down and watched for a moment. Something about her vulnerability tugged at his heart. He hadn't planned to stop, but he couldn't shake the image of her shivering and helpless. Finally, he pulled his truck over, heart pounding with concern. As he stepped out into the cold, he called gently, "Are you okay, ma'am?" The woman looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. She tried to smile, but it faltered, revealing her exhaustion. Mark noticed the dirt on her coat and the worn-out shoes that suggested she had been waiting for a long time. Her wheelchair, old and rattling, seemed barely able to move across the uneven pavement. I missed my ride," she said softly, her voice trembling. Mark immediately felt a surge of empathy, realizing this woman, who introduced herself as Clara, had no one to rely on. Mark approached slowly, keeping his tone calm and comforting. "Don't worry, I can help," he said. Clara hesitated, looking around nervously as if unsure she could trust a stranger. Mark smiled reassuringly, explaining that he lived nearby and could help her get somewhere warm. The cold was biting, and he noticed her hands shaking as she tried to maneuver her wheelchair. Her struggle to keep upright was evident, and Mark instinctively knew he had to act fast. Without overthinking, he knelt beside her, gently steadying the chair while offering a helping hand. "Are you sure?" Clara asked, her voice hesitant but tinged with relief. Mark nodded, emphasizing that she didn't need to worry about anything. As he helped her into his truck, he noticed the effort it took for her to move even a small distance. He adjusted the seatbelt and made sure she was comfortable, covering her with his jacket to protect against the chill. Clara's eyes welled up with tears, and Mark felt a deep sense of responsibility settle over him. He knew he couldn't just leave her at the bus stop. This encounter would change the course of both their lives. The ride home was quiet at first. Clara stared out the window, watching the streets blur past. Mark kept glancing at her, making sure she was comfortable. He asked gentle questions about her day, and Clara slowly began to open up. She explained that she lived alone and had no family nearby. Her voice trembled as she recounted her struggle to get around town. Mark listened intently, absorbing every detail. He felt admiration and sympathy in equal measure. It was clear she had endured much hardship alone, and he realized that his act of kindness was more than a small gesture. It was a lifeline. Arriving at his modest apartment, Mark carefully helped Clara out of the truck. The lift of her wheelchair was slow and deliberate, but Mark was patient, making sure she never felt rushed or insecure. His daughter Emily ran to the door, curious about the visitor. Mark introduced Clara, and Emily immediately offered her toys and a warm smile. Clara's eyes lit up at the simple gestures of kindness. Mark felt a wave of relief and satisfaction as he watched the first genuine smile cross her face in what seemed like years. The atmosphere in the apartment shifted from cold and lonely to welcoming and warm. Mark helped Clara settle into the living room, adjusting cushions and blankets to ensure she was comfortable. He prepared a small meal, mindful of her needs and limitations. Emily sat beside Clara, chatting animatedly, making her laugh despite her initial nervousness. Mark noticed a change in Clara's demeanor. The tension in her shoulders eased, and her eyes sparkled with a sense of safety she hadn't felt before. Mark realized that a simple act of helping someone could carry profound emotional weight. This small apartment had become a refuge for a woman who had been isolated and forgotten by the world. Over the next few hours, Mark helped Clara with basic tasks, offering her a warm drink, adjusting her wheelchair, and even reading a bit from a book she mentioned she enjoyed. Clara's gratitude was evident in her soft words and gentle gestures. Mark, in turn, felt a sense of fulfillment that he hadn't experienced in a long time. As a single father, his life was filled with responsibilities and challenges, but he discovered that helping another human being could bring unexpected joy and meaning. Clara's presence began to feel less like a burden and more like a blessing. Mark and Clara shared stories as the evening wore on. Clara recounted her life experiences, speaking of her joys and hardships with candor. Mark listened, occasionally sharing his own struggles as a single dad. Emily chimed in, eager to be part of the conversation, bridging the generational gap with innocence and warmth. Mark realized that this encounter was more than just helping someone in need. It was forming a connection that transcended age, circumstance, and loneliness. Clara's trust in him deepened, and Mark felt a responsibility to care for her, not just tonight, but in the days to come. By the time night fell, Clara was comfortably settled and feeling more at ease than she had in years. Mark checked her one last time before preparing for bed, ensuring she had everything she needed within reach. Emily hugged Clara goodnight, and Clara's eyes shimmered with emotion. Mark sat back, reflecting on the day's events. What started as a chance encounter at a bus stop had transformed into the beginning of a meaningful bond. He knew that helping Clara wasn't a one-time act. It was a commitment, and one he was ready to embrace. The night was quiet, but Mark's heart was full. Mark had barely finished tidying the small apartment when Clara began asking about his life. She was curious about his daughter, Emily, and how a single dad managed everything alone. Mark smiled faintly, explaining the challenges of balancing work, parenting, and everyday responsibilities. Clara listened attentively, nodding in understanding, and occasionally offering small bits of advice from her life experience. Emily sat nearby, her eyes wide with interest as she absorbed every word. The warmth of the apartment, combined with the sense of genuine connection, created a feeling of comfort and belonging. Mark realized that Clara's presence had already started changing the dynamics of their little family. The next morning, Mark woke early to prepare breakfast. Clara, despite her limited mobility, was eager to join Emily at the table. He carefully arranged her wheelchair so she could sit comfortably, placing a warm blanket over her legs. Emily giggled as she poured milk into Clara's cup, treating her like a grandmother she had never known. Mark watched with a sense of pride and hope. He had expected the day to be chaotic, but Clara's presence brought a surprising sense of calm. Even small tasks, like preparing a simple meal, became moments of bonding and shared joy for all three of them. After breakfast, Mark helped Clara with her daily routine. He assisted her in stretching gently, ensuring she remained comfortable and safe. Clara appreciated the care and patience, smiling as Mark adjusted cushions and blankets to support her posture. Emily eagerly participated, offering small hands-on gestures of help. The scene was a mixture of nurturing and family warmth. Mark realized that these daily tasks, which might seem ordinary to others, were profoundly meaningful to Clara. For the first time in years, she felt cared for, safe, and seen. Mark understood that his commitment to helping her was not a temporary favor. It was becoming a lasting responsibility he gladly embraced. Once Clara was settled, Mark turned his attention to his work. He had a part-time job that required flexibility, but he made time to check on her throughout the day. He explained to Clara that while he had obligations, he was fully committed to ensuring she felt comfortable and secure. Clara's gratitude was evident in the soft smiles and gentle words she offered. Emily helped too, fetching items Clara needed or simply keeping her company. The apartment, once quiet and lonely, was now alive with conversation, laughter, and small acts of kindness. Mark realized that their shared days were transforming into a routine of care and companionship. By midday, Mark decided to take Clara for a short outing. He wanted her to feel some freedom and fresh air, knowing she had been confined at home for too long. Carefully maneuvering her wheelchair into the truck, he secured her seatbelt and covered her legs with a blanket. The drive through town was peaceful, and Clara's eyes lit up as she observed the streets, the trees, and the passing people. Emily sat beside her, pointing out interesting sights and chatting animatedly. Mark felt a sense of satisfaction knowing he was helping Clara reclaim a small portion of her independence and dignity. At a local park, Mark found a smooth, accessible path for Clara's wheelchair. They spent time enjoying the sunlight, the gentle breeze, and the sound of birds. Emily ran ahead, laughing and exploring the playground. Clara's laughter, quiet at first, gradually became more frequent as she engaged with Emily and observed the children playing. Mark watched the interaction, feeling a profound sense of connection and purpose. He realized that the act of kindness that began as a spontaneous gesture at a bus stop had blossomed into a meaningful, transformative relationship that affected everyone involved, creating bonds of love, trust, and mutual respect. After returning home, Mark prepared a light lunch while Clara rested. Emily entertained Clara with stories from school, drawing pictures for her new friend. Mark observed the gentle connection between the two, feeling proud that he had fostered an environment where Clara could thrive emotionally. Over the next few hours, Mark helped Clara with simple exercises recommended by her doctor to maintain mobility and circulation. She appreciated the attention and patience he provided, expressing gratitude repeatedly. Mark, though exhausted, felt deeply fulfilled. Every small gesture, every shared laugh, and every moment of care reinforced the belief that compassion and dedication could truly transform lives. As evening approached, Mark helped Clara with her evening routine. He prepared a warm dinner, carefully arranging her meal on a tray that was easy for her to access. Emily joined in, offering small servings and chatting animatedly, creating a cheerful, lively environment. Clara's mood had improved significantly, her earlier worry and fatigue replaced by comfort and contentment. Mark felt a sense of accomplishment, knowing he had made a tangible difference in her life. This was no longer a fleeting act of kindness. It was the start of a profound connection built on empathy, respect, and genuine care for another human being. After dinner, the three of them settled in the living room. Mark read a story aloud to Clara and Emily, while Emily listened with rapt attention. Clara smiled, occasionally commenting or asking questions, fully engaged for the first time in years. Mark realized that this simple family moment, once unimaginable, was now a reality. The bond between them had strengthened rapidly, forming an unspoken trust and affection. He understood that their lives had intertwined in a way that would change all of them forever, demonstrating that compassion, patience, and human connection could create a profound impact. As night fell, Mark ensured Clara was comfortable in her wheelchair, adjusting blankets and cushions for a restful evening. Emily hugged Clara goodnight, and Clara's eyes glistened with gratitude. Mark reflected on the past 2 days, realizing how a single decision to help a stranger at a bus stop had blossomed into a meaningful, transformative relationship. Clara had found companionship, care, and a sense of family, while Mark and Emily discovered joy, purpose, and the fulfillment of selfless kindness. The apartment, once quiet and ordinary, was now a home filled with love, warmth, and hope. By the next morning, Mark had fully embraced his role in Clara's life. She had begun to adjust to her new routine, feeling safer and more comfortable than she had in years. Emily, thrilled by Clara's presence, was eager to start the day, sharing breakfast and small stories she had learned in school. Mark watched them interact, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. He realized that his initial act of kindness had evolved into a profound responsibility, one that required patience, attention, and a genuine desire to improve someone else's life. It was exhausting at times, but profoundly rewarding. After breakfast, Mark helped Clara with her exercises. He guided her carefully, ensuring she stretched properly and didn't strain herself. Clara's mobility was limited, but with Mark's patience and encouragement, she began to move more confidently. Emily joined in, laughing as she tried to imitate the exercises alongside Clara. The room was filled with warmth, chatter, and encouragement. Mark noticed Clara's face light up whenever Emily spoke or laughed, and he felt a deep sense of satisfaction knowing that his decision to help her was creating tangible happiness. Their lives were becoming intertwined in ways he hadn't anticipated. Later that day, Mark decided to introduce Clara to the neighborhood community. He gently helped her into the truck, ensuring she was secure and comfortable. Emily sat beside her, excited to show Clara the small park and the friendly neighbors who often gathered there. As they arrived, Clara's eyes widened at the welcoming smiles and cheerful greetings. People had heard about Mark's kindness and were eager to meet Clara. Mark felt a sense of pride, but also humility. He realized that a single act of selflessness could ripple through a community, inspiring others and creating a network of care and compassion. At the park, Clara interacted with other families and children. Emily ran ahead, introducing her new friend with pride. Clara, hesitant at first, began to smile more genuinely, sharing laughs and stories from her own childhood. Mark observed quietly, feeling an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. This small excursion was more than a simple walk. It was a step toward independence, social interaction, and emotional recovery for Clara. Mark realized that these seemingly ordinary moments held extraordinary significance. Clara, once isolated and lonely, was beginning to feel seen, valued, and appreciated in ways that went beyond physical assistance. Returning home, Mark prepared a light lunch while Clara rested. Emily helped by setting the table and offering small, cheerful gestures. Clara's gratitude was evident, expressed in soft words and affectionate smiles. Mark noticed a shift in her demeanor. She seemed more confident, more engaged, and more willing to interact with the world around her. He knew that the bond they were forming wasn't just emotional, it was transformative. Their shared routines, moments of laughter, and collaborative efforts to create comfort and joy were reshaping their lives in subtle but profound ways. That afternoon, Mark decided to help Clara with a personal project. She had always loved art, but had given it up due to her limited mobility. With Emily's help, Mark set up a small art corner in the apartment, providing paints, brushes, and paper. Clara's eyes sparkled as she dipped her brush into vibrant colors, painting images that reflected her emotions and memories. Emily giggled as she added her own touches, creating a collaborative masterpiece. Mark watched silently, feeling moved. It was incredible how simple acts of care, encouragement, and creativity could unlock joy and healing in someone's life. As evening approached, Mark prepared dinner while Clara and Emily shared stories from the day. Clara's laughter filled the apartment, a sound that had been missing for far too long. Mark reflected on the journey so far, from a chance encounter at a bus stop to a full-fledged bond that had transformed all of their lives. Emily's joy, Clara's renewed spirit, and Mark's sense of purpose converged to create an atmosphere of love and care. He realized that true kindness often required commitment, patience, and consistency, but the rewards, emotional, social, and spiritual, were immeasurable. After dinner, Mark assisted Clara with her evening routine. He made sure her wheelchair was properly adjusted, her blankets were comfortable, and she had everything she needed within reach. Emily sat nearby, reading a story to Clara, who listened intently, occasionally adding comments or asking questions. Mark felt a profound sense of satisfaction watching them interact. He knew that this connection, which had started spontaneously, had developed into a meaningful relationship built on trust, care, and genuine affection. The apartment, once quiet and lonely, was now alive with warmth, laughter, and a sense of family. That night, Mark sat quietly, reflecting on the past week. Clara's transformation was remarkable. Her mood, confidence, and sense of belonging had improved dramatically. Emily, too, had grown attached, forming a bond that was likely to last a lifetime. Mark understood that their lives had been irrevocably changed by a single act of kindness. He thought about how easily he could have driven past Clara at the bus stop, leaving her to struggle alone. Instead, his decision to act with empathy had created ripples of positive change, affecting 3 lives in profound ways. Over the next few days, Mark and Clara established a steady routine. Mornings were for breakfast, exercises, and light conversation. Afternoons involved outings, creative activities, or simply enjoying the warmth of the home. Emily's presence ensured laughter and joy were constant companions. Mark noticed how Clara's health had improved slightly due to the combination of physical activity, emotional support, and proper care. Her gratitude was evident in small gestures, soft words, and the way she engaged with Emily. Mark realized that true kindness wasn't just about helping someone in a moment of need, it was about consistent, thoughtful care over time. One afternoon, a local news reporter arrived at Mark's doorstep. Word had spread about his extraordinary act of kindness, and the reporter wanted to share the story with the wider community. Mark felt both nervous and proud as he introduced Clara and Emily. Clara's smile, radiant and genuine, was captured on camera. The story highlighted how a single father's compassion had given a paralyzed, lonely woman a sense of family and belonging. The community's reaction was overwhelming. Messages of support, admiration, and inspiration poured in. Mark realized that one person's empathy could truly inspire countless others. In the following weeks, Mark continued to support Clara in every way possible. He ensured she had medical appointments, assisted with daily care, and provided companionship. Emily remained a constant source of joy, her youthful energy brightening Clara's days. Clara's transformation was remarkable, both physically and emotionally. She smiled more, engaged in conversation, and even began sharing advice and stories from her life experiences. Mark felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that his decision to act with kindness had created a lasting impact on someone's life, transforming not only Clara's world, but his own as well. By the end of the month, the bond between Mark, Emily, and Clara had solidified into something truly special. They had become a family not defined by blood, but by love, compassion, and shared experiences. The community continued to admire Mark's selflessness, and Clara, once isolated and lonely, now had a life filled with warmth, connection, and care. Mark understood that life was unpredictable, but moments of genuine kindness could create ripple effects that changed lives forever. The chance encounter at a bus stop had blossomed into a story of hope, empathy, and the enduring power of human connection. Thank you for watching. This story reminds us that even a single act of kindness can create a ripple effect that changes lives forever. Mark, Emily, and Clara found hope, love, and family in the most unexpected way, and it all started with one caring heart. If this story touched you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring tales. Don't forget to comment and tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing from you.